Hello, it is Teresa from Teresa's Spot for Art, where I love sharing art from my heart and teaching you how to create a little joy in your life through some fun, simple, and quick art projects. We're doing the spring butterfly tonight. So you should have gotten a supply list and a tracer. The tracer is minimal. It is just the side view of the butterfly. I have this one for 9 by 12, and then I have this one because tonight I'll be doing an 11 by 14. Okay, so let me turn my camera around and we will get started. So I'm gonna put this one aside. So you can put your butterfly on your canvas wherever you want. I rarely use a straight edge or a ruler. I'm always eyeballing it and winging it. So I'm gonna put my butterfly to the left and off center a little bit. Okay, so it's to the left and up. I'm gonna use a piece of tape to hinge it, and then I'm gonna grab my very well-worn piece of graphite paper and slip it underneath. Oh, my hinge came off. I need to fix that. So happens when you reuse your tape too many times. Okay. There we go. All right, have that all lined up, and you can use the back of a brush. You can use a pen, a pencil. I use this stylus. It has these two little metal balls on the back, and I'm just going to come in here and trace on my butterfly. If you did this part already and you're watching on the replay, you have the digital download. Just fast forward through this part and then we will get ready to paint. I am also going to, for the purpose of this class, trace my butterfly with a black Sharpie. You do not have to do that. I feel it helps you guys be able to see what I'm doing. I'm going to keep my hand here. I'm going to lift up, make sure I didn't miss anything. Oh, and I did. I missed this one little piece. It's very hard to lay it down again once you lift it up. I'm just going to go over where my tape is again, because sometimes those lines aren't so dark. Okay. Put that aside, hold this up. So like I said, I'm going to outline this in a Sharpie. You can, but you don't have to. Once we paint our whole butterfly later, it's all outlined in black anyway, but this helps you guys see it better on the video. So I'm just going to go quickly in here and go around my entire butterfly. Again, if you did this part already, just hit the fast forward. I use the same technique when I do my boho butterfly, dragonfly, and bumblebee. Okay, so we are ready to go. I'm going to put out a little bit of this green. You guys have a supply list. The colors on my supply list are always suggestions. I don't want anybody to feel like they have to go out and spend money on supplies or spend money on baby blue when they have Bahama blue. Nope, it's not really not necessary. The important thing is to be here and be creating and taking a little time for yourself while we paint. So I put out my first two colors. I have out this light. Let me move you guys. Let me close this so I can see. I have out light blue and light green. Okay, it's baby blue and this is matcha green. And I'm going to add a little house of light to it because it's a little too light. But whatever light green you have is fine. Right? Let me set up my, oops, time lapse before I forget. And there we go. Okay. So I'm using this brush. It's a little bit more than a 1/2 inch wide. It is a flat brush. It'll come together. I would basically use this brush for base coating our background, which I'm going to do now. This is probably not a brush I would use to do detailing. I would use a nicer brush, one that is in better condition that comes together like this. But I save these brushes because I don't throw away anything and because it's a great brush for background. So I have my paint here. You may have one green, you may have two greens, whatever green you have. And I'm going to come over to my green and I'm going to apply a little bit of pressure to my brush. We don't want to be shy with the paint and just dip in a corner or the very edge. You want to apply a little bit of pressure to your brush. You want the fibers on your brush to flare out so you get paint up into the fibers of your brush. You don't want to get it all the way up here because it'll start feeding into here and that's what'll ruin your brush. This is called the ferrule. If you do, it's fine. You have to clean your brush after anyway. But we want to get a decent amount of paint up into our brush. And you do that by applying a little bit of pressure. And don't be shy and just be dipping in your paint. Okay? And then I'm going to come to my canvas. And I'm just going to pounce in here a line. Sloppy. No rhyme or reason to it. This way, I have a visual of where my green is going to end and where my blue is going to start. It just helps me contain myself when I start painting. Okay, so I'm going to pick up my blue. Let me put out a little white too. I have my green, and I'm just going to start messily, that's a word, painting in my background with the green. Okay, I'm going to come back, I'm going to pick up some green, and then I'm going to put a corner into my white. So I have all this green on my brush, and then I just scooped up a corner with white. And again, I'm going to come back and messily paint in this green. I'm basically doing X's. They cross over each other, X, 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 X. When I run out of paint, I pick up green, scoop up some white, and I come back to my board doing these X's. Sometimes I go back to where I already hit, and then sometimes I go new. When I want to get around my design, I will use my brush standing up and outline. And then I pull out, so I make X's again. And that's basically it. I'm doing one side, two side, one side, two side, and crisscrossing over each other. Again, I'm going to come on this side. I'm going to come as close as I can to my butterfly. If you need to do this with a smaller brush, that's fine. And I just have like a little bit of an outline there. I'm going to dip back in my green, scoop up some white, and now I'm going to do this corner. And I'm doing these X's. I want to spread out what I painted around my butterfly a little bit. Your brush should move like warm butter. If you're struggling with your brush, if you're seeing a lot of divots in your canvas, if you have dry edges on the end of your strokes, that means you don't have enough paint and you need more paint. Okay? With my brush dirty and with whatever paint I have on it, I'm going to go around the edges. Now you may be painting on a canvas, you may be painting in an art journal, so you won't have edges. You may want to leave your edges white. Sometimes, depending on the design, if it's something real cutesy, I will do a really fun pattern on my edge. Sorry for the crash, but it's up to you. I call this wrapping because I wrap the color around from the front to the sides, and then as I work my way up, that'll be blue. So you want a lot of texture. You want texture, you want different variations. That's why I have all the colors on my brush at once. The green, the white, I have that light green in there because I made a darker green. That light green was too light to begin with, so I put a darker green. But then I just used both because that was fine. And I just X, X, X. Now I'm not going to wash my brush. I'm just going to wipe it off a little bit on my rag here. And I'm going to go right into my blue. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pick up some blue. I'm going to scoop up some white. I didn't even wash my brush. And I'm going to start up here with the blue and the X's. I want to work my way into the green and work my way up into the blue. So down and then back up to the blue. I'm going to pick up some blue, corner in the white, and I'm going to work on my X's, and I'm going to bring the blue and white into the green, and then I'm going to work my way up. You want your paint to be wet on wet. You want your paint to be wet on wet where you mix it into the green. So I'm working in little sections. Again, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to outline my butterfly. It just helps me have a visual of where I need to be with this color at this time. If that doesn't work for you, another technique works for you, that's fine. This is just how I do it. And now I'm up here in the real sky and I'm just doing a mix match. Blue, white, and I'm doing the crosses. So you can see I do one way, then I do the brush the other way. Then I go back and I'm always flip-flopping my wrist around. And we're having a variety of shades where our green and our blue mix, where our blue and our white mix, and where we just have blue. I'm going to go to the other side. I'm going to pick up some blue, pick up some white, and I'm going to work on this corner over here. I'm just going to go right over his legs. I want to mix into my green. And then I'm going to pull up. Okay. Now I can still see my legs, but I'm not going to worry about that. If you can't see your butterfly legs, they are easy enough to put back in later. All right, and now I'm just doing this side of the butterfly wing. And again, I'm going back with my X's. And you can really tell when you're struggling to move your brush or you're starting leaving a lot of white trails or your brush is making too much noise. You can tell this, I can tell the sound now between a nice wet flowing smoothly gliding brush and a brush that is needing more paint. Okay. Now, if you get to this part and you look at your painting and you think it's too blue, add some white. If you get to this part and you think your sky is not blue enough, add more blue. Painting is like writing. We all learn the alphabet. We all learn to print. We all learn how to write our letters, but none of us write the same. It has a lot to do with our coordination, the pressure, the brush we use, how much, how tight we hold it, how much pressure we put on it. So your painting will not look like my painting, and that's okay. Your painting will look like your painting, and I hope at the end of this that you will be happy with your painting. And if not, you can watch again and try it again. It is just paint. It is about the experience. I want you guys to have something pretty that you like when all is said and done. But if you're here just to chill and have a little time for yourself, That's always a win too. Okay, now I don't know if you guys can see, but I have a nice more blend here than I have here. So I'm just going to pick up a little bit of green on my brush. This side dried when I went to do my blue. So I just picked up a little green and I'm working it in there. A lot of this down here, and this is always important, a lot of this down here is going to get covered up with our grasses and our lavender. So if you're not loving this down here, don't fret over it right now because we have many, many more steps to go through. And at the end, if there's like something over here that you didn't love, we'll put lavender there or we'll put some grasses there. And then at the end, you're gonna be like, oh, I don't even know where that was anymore. Okay. So just keep going and don't get too jammed up about something that we're probably going to end up covering up anyway. Okay, now I'm going to give my brush a wash, and I'm probably done with this big brush. I'm going to wash it out anyway, just in case I want to grab it later and put it aside. And I'm going to go to a smaller brush. Now, you can use here we go, this one. You can use a small flat brush for this. This is between maybe a 1/4 inch wide and a 1/2 inch wide, or you can use a smaller round brush for this. It is totally up to you. Whatever brush you have, whatever brush you're comfortable with, either one will work fine. And I'm going to put out a tiny bit of, believe it or not, burgundy. Burgundy is how we're going to get our pink butterfly. Okay. I'm going to use the round brush, but you can use the flat brush. Like I said, it's totally up to you. And I'm going to load my brush up with white. Again, even though it's a round brush, you want to put a little bit of pressure on it. You want the fibers to flare out so you can get paint all up in there. Right? This is loading the brush with paint. And then I'm just going to come over here and dip in the corner of the burgundy. So now I have white and burgundy on my brush. If you need fresh white, if your white got too contaminated with the blue and the green before, just put out a little bit of fresh white. Okay? And all I'm going to do is stop putting my hand in the paint, is start painting in the section. Now this is black and this is black. The outside of the butterfly is black, but I'm going to start painting in the sections of our beautiful butterfly wings. And you don't want to overblend. I'm using little tiny strokes. If you did Sharpie, you can stay in the lines. If you didn't do Sharpie, that's fine. You just want to be able to go back because we're going to go back and we're going to outline everything in black later. I'm going to pick up some more white on my brush and we're just going to fill in these sections. And you want variation. You don't want to overmix your paint. We're not making a new color. We're not blending so we get a light pink. We want different variations, some dark, some light, some whiter, some darker. Each time you pick up, you can pick up a little bit of burgundy. If your butterfly is getting way too dark, then pick up some more white. But you want both colors. So I'm going to pick up white and then just a tip in the burgundy. A little bit of this dark color against the white goes a very long way. And I'm just going to keep painting it in. These little tiny strokes because we don't want to overblend our paint. We want to see the grades. We want to see the striations. We really want to see the brush strokes because you want to see all those variations in the paint there. And I'm going to keep going and working in section by section. Now you could say, why don't we just paint the whole thing? It would be so much easier. Because, believe it or not, when you paint the sections and your brush strokes go with each section, that is helping your eyes see that it is a design, that there's different areas, and it creates this pattern. We don't want to come in here with pink and just paint everything pink. Okay? We're doing it section by section. Okay? I'm going to pick up a little bit more white, a little bit more of my burgundy. And there's no rhyme or reason why I skipped over these and went to this one. Just felt like it. Don't know why. You can go in order. You can follow me. Some things really don't matter. And I'll show you something too. So this is the one I painted. Look how much darker this one was than this one. And I painted this one, and I'm painting this one. So it's all good. It's art. It can't be wrong. And if you have some sections that are darker than others, that's fine too. Especially because this butterfly is presumably folded up. We're only seeing this butterfly from one side. If we had our butterfly like this, it's important to be symmetrical when you paint a butterfly with its body in the middle and its wings open. But in order to help you guys be successful, it's so much easier when we pick a design, and I'm teaching a design that uses the butterfly from the side on the profile. This way you don't have to worry about being symmetrical with your butterfly's body. Not that it would be right or wrong, but this way we don't have to have people worrying about, oh, but my butterfly doesn't match. It's okay. All right. So I did all my butterfly. Now, if your butterfly is too light, you can add burgundy. If your butterfly is too dark, you can add white. If you paint this again and you want to do a purple butterfly or a yellow butterfly, go right ahead. Okay. So we did our green and our blue background, and now we base coated in the body of our butterfly with some pink. We mixed white and burgundy. If you had pink, you can use pink as well. And now I'm going to wash my brush. I'm just putting out a little bit of black and then a little bit of this dark green. This is Hauser Dark. If you just have the one green, you can darken it up so you can make some contrast down here in your grasses with a tiny, tiny bit of black. Like, I mean, if you have this light green here, you want to start out with basically like a pinhead size of black, mix it over here just to darken this up a little bit. I'll show you. So I would come over here, literally, that is it, and start mixing it into my green. I always work at the edge. A little bit more. Oh, I fell that time. There we go, a little bit more. And just work it in and work it in. When I first started out, I was scared of mixing colors. I never mixed colors. Plus, it's hard if you mix colors to get like the same color again. I'm getting better at that. So, but I do know a little bit of black goes a very long way. So I can tell the difference now between this and this. So you can use a darker green, or you can start mixing a little bit of black with the green that you have to get the grasses. I'm just going to wipe that off. Okay. I'm going to turn this. So for our grasses, You can use the round brush, you can use your flat brush, or you can use a liner brush, and I will show you all of them. With the flat brush or the round brush, you have to have a very soft touch. So if you have a heavy hand, it's going to be a little harder to do the grasses with the round brush, but I'll show you just as well. Okay, so I'm going to come over to my dark green or whatever green I'm using. I'm going to roll it, a little bit of pressure, get some paint up in there, and I'm going to roll it so I have a nice point. I'm going to start at the bottom of the canvas, and I'm going to flick up for grass. Okay, that's one way. Another way is to get your flat brush. Again, pressure, pressure. You want to get some paint up there in the bristles, flare out. Get some nice paint. Then I have my brush here. My chisel edge is nice, and I have some hairs boinging out, but they're not going to reach. But my chisel edge here is nice and skinny. Again, I'm going to start at the bottom, and I'm going to pull up with my grass. Okay. Or same thing with the liner brush. Get my liner brush. I'm going to twirl it in my green paint. Come down to the bottom of my design and pull up some grasses. Okay. Whichever brush works for you and whichever brush you like is the brush you're going to use for your grass. I put my finger in the black paint and I'm just going to fix it down here. Okay. So if you like the liner brush, if you like the round brush, it's totally up to you. I'm going to go back to my round brush and I'm just going to pull in some bunches of grasses. Roll my brush. You want, when you put in your grass, to flick up. You want it to be thinner at the top than it is on the bottom. If you need to practice on some scrap paper or on your desk first or wherever it is you paint, on the tablecloth you're using to protect your surface, go right ahead. And I'm just putting in randomly these grasses. And you can put as many or as few as you want. And they should all be different heights, especially the ones under the butterfly here should be a little bit lower. We don't want to cover up our beautiful butterfly. That's the focal point of our art. And then the ones out to the side can be a little bit taller. I'm going to wash my brush again. Okay. Now when I paint, and I do the same thing whether I'm teaching a class or painting for myself, I hop around a lot. And there's a couple of reasons for that. The main reason is it's kind of boring to watch paint dry. But the second reason is sometimes, we only have 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 20 minutes to work on something, make something, create something. So I hop around. So while the butterfly's drying, I work on the grass. While the grass is drying, we'll go back to another section of the butterfly. We hop around, so while one part is drying, we can continue to paint on other parts of our design. And this way it always keeps moving. So we want our grasses down here to dry a little bit before we start tapping in our lavender and our flowers from the bottom. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the black portions of our butterfly. So again, we're going to get the brush that we're comfortable with, whether that's your liner brush or your small flat brush or this little round brush. Totally up to you. And now that my butterfly is kind of dry, I can put my hand here and I'm going to start with painting in his body. Oh, you know what I think I did? I think I forgot this part too. And I think I forgot this part the first time I painted this too. It must be something weird with me in this little section here. I don't know why. That is very, very bizarre. Okay. So back to its body. So I'm going to paint in the body. Okay. I'm going to give him his little legs. And they're basically like upside down L's. These two are upside down, that one's backwards. Then I'm going to do some antenna. So the way I do with the antenna is I come up here and I randomly put a dot. And then I'll just make a little line. It doesn't even have to touch. It's abstract. You know it's the antenna. All right, so I'm going to come up here. I'm going to put another little dot. And then I'm just going to put a little line. If it touches, it touches. If it doesn't, we know it's a butterfly and we know that's the butterfly's antenna. And then I'm going to continue up in here. And now that we're doing our black, if our sections on our butterfly were a little messy, we're going to take some time. I got a piece of fuzz. We're going to take our time with our black and we're going to come in and we're going to clean up all these edges of the segments in the design of our butterfly's beautiful wings. So I'm going to make an outline here, up the side, and then I'm just going to start filling in all this and cleaning up any of these areas that didn't have a nice curve when I painted in my burgundy, pink, white combination for my butterfly wings. I'm holding my brush down really low so I have control over the tip because we want this is not loosey-goosey. We want this to be nice and neat in here. And I can control my brush because I'm holding it down close. When I did my grasses, I was flicking, so I held it up higher. But to come down in here and clean up around the segments of our wings, I want to hold my brush much closer to the brush part, to the metal. This is the ferrule, and I'm actually holding on the metal ferrule part of my brush. And if you had your segments of your butterfly looking a little wonky or uneven, now is the time with the black to come in here. And I'll tell you guys a trick too, and I don't use them often, but paint pens work wonders. I don't use them for two reasons. B, because I just like to use my liner brush, and C, because they're pricey. Oh, and three reasons actually. In order to use a paint pen, the paint on your project has to be 100% dry. So you really couldn't finish. You'd have to come back hours later or tomorrow to use your paint pen. But if you were so inclined, you could stop your butterfly right here. You could do this black in here with the black, I mean, and then you could come back tomorrow, tonight, whatever, and you can, if you really, really want to, you can trace your segments or draw your segments back in with a Sharpie, or you can get a paint pen. This is a Posca pen, but they make other brands of paint pens. You have to give it a shake. This is a black paint pen. And when your project is 100% dry, you can come in here and your painting is dry and you can control, and it's a marker, and you can do your lines for your segments for your butterfly. I'm going to keep going. So if you want to watch, you can, or you can fast forward because you're like, hey, I'm going to use that paint pen or a Sharpie. Up to you. But I'm going to keep going with my round brush. And I'm going to outline all the lines of our butterfly. If you can't see yours, you can use the tracer as a guide. And I'm just following over these lines and making all the segments of my butterfly wings. You can tell I'm concentrating, my voice slows down, I start to talk less. Don't be shy about moving your project around. Whatever makes it easier for you to use your brush. You have to turn it upside down, sideways. The important thing is to be successful and like what you paint. I am forever moving my canvas or my surface around. If you are painting along with me, this is still not the end of our butterfly. We're going to add some white highlights to it. But again, we go in steps because now, while our black dries, we can start working on our lavender. So I'm going to wash my brush again. If you're doing your lines for your butterfly and you're looking at them and you think they're too fat, we're going to come back in with a little bit of white highlight and that kind of tones down the black a little bit. So it is a process and no judging at all really, but definitely no judging until the end. And now I'm going to put out some purple. I have this perfect purple and purple pizzazz. One purple is fine though. I did my aggressive first. Okay. Then I'm going to either get my round brush or my liner brush. Again, it is up to you. I always like to make sure that my brush is dry by giving it a squeeze and whatever I'm using, whether that's a paper towel or my apron or this ratty rag. Because sometimes if you just go over here like this with your brush, sometimes water gets stuck up in here in the metal. And when you turn your brush upright, it'll run out. And that's a lot harder to fix on your painting than it is to fix a paint mistake. Okay, so you can use your round brush or your liner brush. You can even use your little flat brush too. But we're going to dip in the purple, and I'm going to randomly pick some grasses just to tap on. I'm literally picking up purple paint and tapping it down randomly on the entire blade of grass, because in this case, it really wouldn't be a blade of grass. It's more like a stalk or a stem. I'm picking this blade of grass because this one was too fat. And now I'm covering it up with my purple. So instead of at the beginning of the class or when we did the grass, and I was like, oh, I did that grass so fat, now what? I don't even worry about it, because then I know that's going to be one of the grasses that I cover up with my little purple flowers. And I'm literally just randomly tapping in on the grass. And like I said, but in this case, these particular ones are now all of a sudden not grass, they're stems. I just pick up some paint. I got my pinky not my pinky, my pointer hanging out, so I don't have too much pressure. And I'm tapping my way down on these grasses. I try not to run out of paint. I go back for more paint every so often. And I come in and I tap it in. Now, these are very abstract. There's no rhyme or reason. There's no pattern. I'm just tapping. And again, a lot of these may get covered up with our lavender as well. This is just background. Our focal point is definitely our butterfly and then our lavender. Now I'm not going to wash my brush. I'm going to go dip into my white. And I'm going to randomly tap in some white. Not as much, but over my purple. So some of it is going to be nice and white. Some of it's going to be light purple. Some of it's getting mixed. But you can see, oh, by the way, you guys, I just ordered a new camera that zooms. So it will be I'm going to replace my overhead camera with a camera that zooms and has a remote. So I'm very excited about that. I can't wait to try it out. But anyway, so yes, so I'm tapping in, randomly adding some white to the purple. Not as much white, less white, and just giving it some highlights in there. And then I'm going to wash my brush. You can see how now it's really starting to come together. We got most of our butterfly done. We're going to add some highlight in there. We did some lavender flowers, abstract background flowers in the bottom and the background on our grasses. And now we're going to pounce in our lavender. I'm going to move this out of the way for a second. This over here. And get a piece of scrap paper. Oh, I'm just painting a little bit of green on this background so you guys can see what the lavender is going to look like when I pounce it in. Okay, let me wash my brush. Okay. Sometimes when I do these pouncy flowers, I use what is called, interesting enough, a scruffy brush for pouncing. This is a natural fiber brush. I get mine at Plaid. This one's got loose fiber, and they're perfect for pouncing, pouncing, pouncing. These are specialty brushes. Not everyone has them. And again, I don't like you guys to go out and have to invest or spend money that you really don't need to in order to have a successful piece of art that you like. So we're going to use, and I'm going to use the big brush that I started with. If you have a brush that you don't love, that you use for backgrounds, that's like this, that's never going to come together again, that's probably the best to use. That's what this one looked like before we started tonight. You don't want to take, if it's your only brush, of course, that's fine. But you don't want to take a brand new brush that you have and love that you use and use it in a pouncy method. You'll probably end up at some point ruining the brush. But if that's the only brush you have, we'll go with it. So I'm going to use the brush that I started with when I did my background. Okay. I'm going to dip it in the purple. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to pick up some white. So I'm using it almost like, I guess how you would stencil with a stencil brush. Actually, you could probably use a stencil brush for this too. I'm dipping in purple, I'm dipping in white. And we're going to come to our surface and we're going to pounce in our lavender. And we want our lavender to look in a cone shape. So we want it pointy at the top and wider at the bottom. Okay, I'll get darker this time so you guys can see. So a little bit of a curve. It almost has like a leaf shape to it. And we're pouncing. Not full coverage. Pick up some white. Pounce in some white on top of it. All right. The important part of the lavender is we don't have a straight edge. We don't have full coverage. We have a lot of mixture going on. This one's a little bit more muddy than this one. That's fine. But we don't have a straight edge. Okay. And you have a lot of variation going on there. We'll put that aside. So I'm going to go back in and pounce, pick up in the purple, pounce in the white. So I got a messy brush. I have everything on the brush. And the first lavender we're going to do is we're going to give our bee someplace to sit. Now, if you have a problem going right to your canvas with this brush and this lavender and this new technique, get a pencil, get a piece of chalk, and draw in a couple of shapes where you want to put your lavender. Okay? Easy peasy. That's fine. Do it with pencil. You'll cover them right up. Do it with chalk, whatever. Okay, so I'm pouncing. Using my brush upright, I'm pouncing. And then I go into my white and pounce. Then I'm going to come in here, pounce to a point, and pounce back down. And yes, we want to go over some of the grass. We want to go over some of the flowers that we put in. If you're getting too much purple, go pick up some white. Now my butterfly is a little bit to the left. So I have a lot more lavender going on in this sample than I'm gonna have on this side and this one. That's okay. If you have more room to the left, you can put more lavender to the left. If you don't, you could do to the right. It's all good. I'm gonna put a little one down here. You can do the same thing with your purple if you want by adding a tiny, tiny bit of black to darken it up if you need to. Mm. I would suggest doing all of the lavender, letting it dry a little bit, and then coming back and seeing if you want one to be lighter or darker. Because if you keep trying to pounce wet into wet, wet on wet blends. So you're going to continue to blend and have a very light purple. If you wait for these ones to dry and you come back with dark or white, you'll have a lot more variation. So I'm just pouncing in and making them pointy at the top, wider at the bottom. Pick up more paint. You don't want a straight edge. And if you can see through them a little bit, that's fine too. Pounce in purple, pounce in white. This one's coming out from the side. If you want to, depending on what you did with the edges of your canvas, you can bring the lavender around, but that is totally up to you. I'm going to pounce, pounce. The good thing about acrylic paints, they tend to dry pretty quick. My acrylic paint dries very quick in here, especially in the winter. I have a space heater. My art room is very cold in the winter, so I have a space heater. So my paint on my plate, when I paint on my projects, dries really quick with the space heater on. But my point was that once you do all your lavender, it's dry enough for you to go back to the beginning and darken it up or lighten it up. So I have 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In the art and floral world, odds are better. So I'm going to add a 7th. Put it right here in the corner. When you're doing a floral arrangement, whether it's with real flowers or in an art project, you want your florals to make triangles and you want them in odd numbers. Okay, I'm just going to wipe off my brush a little bit. And now I'm going to go back into just my purple because I want to start darkening these up a little bit. I'm probably going to just darken up the one side. So I'm pouncing into my purple and I'm coming back in here. Under the butterfly would be a little shady. And then on this side. And then down underneath on this one. In here, I pounced in my blue a little bit, but that's okay. I don't mind. The important thing when you're doing your lavender is to have variation, is to have the light pouncing touch, and you want these rough edges. You want these rough edges where you pounced. If you have to take your brush and give it a little bit of pressure on your hand to loosen it up, that's okay too. Because you want to see all this variation and the rough edges. For my painting, if I'm so inclined, I may come back and add another little butterfly up here. In order to do that, I would take this tracer, I would shrink it down and make it smaller, and I would probably trace it on backwards so it's either facing the other way or maybe just turn it so it's at a different angle. I'm not going to do that tonight, but I'm just letting you guys know what you could do if you wanted to. Mm. Now we're going to start adding in some highlights to our butterfly. If you need fresh white, go ahead and grab it. I'm good with what I have right now. I'm going back to my liner brush and I'm twirling it in my white. You want to have a nice point on your liner brush. This is another step too, that if you had a white Posca pen, you could wait for your painting to dry and you can come back in with your white pen and do all the white that I'm doing right now with the liner brush. Totally up to you. I'm going to give a little bit of highlight on the back of the butterfly. I'm going to give a little bit on his legs. Okay, literally, I'm just tracing over the black, but not completely, just giving a little highlight. And do the same thing. I'm going to add a little bit of highlight to the antenna. And I think I'm going to turn this upside down before I put my hand in my lavender. I'm going to come in and I'm gently going to add a little bit of white in between on the black segment. So if you did it with a liner brush and you did your black, you can come back in just a little light touch. And this is what I said, if you look at your black and your black was way too thick, now is a good time to come back in with the white and it just lightens it up a little bit. We're not doing every segment or every line of every segment. We're just doing like little dashes in here. Okay. I'm not drawing one complete line. I'm just coming in here, little bits and pieces. Okay. Can do the same thing with white. I'm going to grab some white and I'm actually going to put a little bit of highlight on the wing. Okay. Very light touch. Very light. Tiny little wisps of the white. Not too much. Okay. Is just a little bit of highlight here and there. And it's literally dashes, not big heavy lines. So I did the body, I did the legs, I did the antenna, and then just little tiny dashes on the black lines in between each of the segments. Then I'm going to take the back of my brush, the handle. I'm going to dip the handle in my white paint. And I'm going to start adding polka dots to the large black segments of my butterfly. And you could do as many of these or as few of these as you want. You can use a different brush, so yours are bigger. You can use a different brush, so yours are smaller. And we're just going to fill in randomly both these large sections of our butterfly with these dots. I'm just trying not to put my hand in any other paint. I usually get 2 to 3 dots every time I tap my brush. And I'm just filling in the fat black sections. We don't want to have a pattern, it's random. You don't want to line them up like little soldiers. And sometimes it's hard. Used to be very hard for me to be random. It'd be very hard for me to be random and loose, but with practice it came. I still can't junk journal. That's the next thing I'll take on. But I have gotten much looser and random with my painting. And I think that's it. I think I have quite a few enough. Like I said, you can do as many or as few as you want. You can do bigger ones, you can do smaller ones, depends on the brush you use. I used my liner brush, so this end is much smaller than, let's say, the brush I used for the lavender. And I'm gonna wash my brush. And that is it. You can sign your artwork if you want, you can date it if you want. What I did start doing is I will turn over my canvas, and I do it with my finger. I put my finger in every color paint that's on my palette, and I dab it onto the back of my canvas or my painting, my surface, whatever it is that I have. I'm a mess anyway. And this way I know when I pick up that painting again another time, basically the colors I used. Will it be the same exact green, the same exact purple? Probably not. But at least I have back here the palette that I used. Let me turn you guys around. And there we go. I hope you enjoyed painting this spring meadow butterfly with me. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for all your support. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you next time.